Hey everybody, welcome back to Built for Medicine. I'm Dr. Corbin.
And I'm Dr. Madrano.
Today we're going to talk about the finances of picking undergrad versus not, why you should, why you shouldn't, and kind of what to expect on the other side for the ever-growing cost of undergraduate education.
Yeah, this is something I didn't spend too much time thinking about, and I think it'd be helpful. So if you're a high school student looking at majors to choose, if you're a parent supporting a student who is interested in college, I think this could be really beneficial just to kind of get an idea of expected income. And we're not saying that this should be the primary reason why you choose a major, but definitely I think is an important thing to consider.
Right. So Damien, tell me a little bit about some of the factors you were thinking when it came to cost of undergrad and what your plans were.
Yeah, for me, I was sort of thinking medicine could be the ultimate goal. So picking a science major, I didn't know too much about, how much I would make as a biology major graduating from college with that degree. But I knew it probably wasn't going to be very much, I think, just from the short conversations that I had. But I think it would have been, I may have considered other options if I kind of knew, if medicine wasn't going to work out, what could I do with this major? What could I expect? And maybe things like chemical engineering are things that I would have considered more heavily. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, when you're making a decision on like picking undergrad and all the factors that go into that, cost is one of the biggest things that you want to think about. For me as well, because in the previous video we talked about why we picked what we picked. I was really interested in inventions, and so I was good at science, so I picked biochemistry, but it was one of those things in the back of my mind of, okay, what am I going to do with this? I had the kind of the forethought of going into law school and doing patent law, but when you're thinking about picking an undergrad major, if you're going to decide to go to undergrad, at this point in time, the costs are extremely high, and so what you want to do is pick something that will allow you to live the life that you're expecting at some point after undergrad. It may not be the first year out or even 5 years out, but by the time you're thinking about perhaps starting a family, if you want to do that, or in your mid-career, living a life that you're expecting to live, you want to make sure that that major can align with that. And today we're seeing the potential to, really hit these extremely high numbers coming straight out of undergrad just by what you pick. And so, a lot of times people talk about the STEM field, but, we're going to go over some numbers today, but it's pretty remarkable what you can achieve from undergrad if you pick a certain career versus another. Now, that's not to say that everything is about money, but it is important when we look at the average cost of undergrad, what it was and what it is now. It's important to really factor in, what are you going to be able to make financially after deciding your major.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the numbers, okay? If you're a high school student kind of on the fence about college, or maybe you're a parent, you're not sure if you should support your child going to college, here's the financial advantage that I make, right? So some of the data that we're going to talk about is from the past 2 or 3 years. But I think it's going to be relatively the same as it is this year. So when you look at high school graduates, their average income is about $41,000 a year. Now compare that to people who go to college and graduate with a degree. They're getting about $60,000 per year. So I think just by that, the numbers pretty heavily skewed towards an advantage if you go to college and get a degree.
Yeah, and I think that nowadays what's interesting, and there's a true kind of conversation to be had, is with the growing costs of undergrad education, that gap is not so great anymore. $40,000, of course, you would hope it to be higher if you just come out of high school, but for $61,000, if you're spending north of $50,000 to $100,000 for an undergrad education for a $20,000 gap, you can see how that's not, it's going to take you a really long time to pay that back. And so that's why we want to move into okay, how do we maximize our time at undergrad, right? We don't want to just come out, have had a great time, but not have maximized our opportunities afterwards. We're all about making sure we come out valuable and successful people, like we were able to do. And so what we want to do is share with you guys some of the fields that have that opportunity after undergrad.
Yeah, one of the biggest surprises that I saw when you look at the top 10 highest paying degrees, I was really surprised to see a lot of them are in STEM careers. So particularly engineering, I thought was the most surprising. I don't know about you, but did you know anything about engineering? I feel like when I was looking at degrees early in college, maybe chemical engineering came up and electric, but there's like so many like subtypes of engineering. I didn't even realize how many there were.
Well, it's funny because for me, going through engineering is always something that I thought about. Like mechanical engineering, I thought was really, really cool. I didn't think too much about electrical, but I think the biochemical engineering was also pretty high on my list. But I never really thought about like computer science and software engineering, and look at what that blossomed into. I mean, it just kind of goes to show you, for us, it's been 12 plus years, and you get to see what's changed and what's happened over time. So back then, I had a couple friends who were like, yeah, I'm into the computer science thing, but not a lot of us were, and more so at my high school, people were interested in like engineering, which at the time was like a really great way to come out and make a great living and support your family. And then of course there's like medicine and law, which kind of traditionally offered, an array of different lifestyles depending on what you wanted. And so it's insane to see nowadays what software engineering can do.
As far as average income, coming out of undergrad, baseline salaries range from $65,000 to $75,000. So, and that's going to be on the higher end. Compare these to other majors like psychology, which I think had about 40K, biology, another one that was kind of on the lower end, about 40K a year. And then there's pharmacy and nursing school, and after graduating from those programs, 50 to 60K a year is what you can kind of expect. So I think the big takeaway, STEM careers, if you invest in education in one of these degrees, you're gonna get a pretty good payoff, relative to the other choices. And these are all baseline salaries that I mentioned. It doesn't even get to what you're making after you've worked a few years in that industry. For engineering, we're talking probably 100, 120K a year once you kind of establish yourself and got a few years under your belt. So, of course the prices or the income's gonna increase over time.
Exactly. And I think, it kind of goes to show you that everything has its pros and cons when you are making the decision of whether or not you want to go to undergrad. But I think overarching, being able to support your family if you want to have one, or just yourself, is a really important consideration. And so when you're picking why you want to go to undergrad, you've got to consider the financial part. You want to look at something where at the end of this, you'll be able to make what you want to make, or at least in the ballpark, or have the opportunity to, and not be kind of closed off. Because I know a lot of times in high school, teachers don't necessarily talk about the finances of things. Perhaps you don't care because you're too young to think about it. But as you get older and you mature, you'll start to realize, in order to do what I want to do, it costs money to do it. And you may or may not be able to do it simply because of what you picked. Now, again, some people have better aptitude and abilities to do certain things, and it's harder to learn some of the skills that would end up paying a lot more. But, if you're a diligent and good student, most majors are something you can accomplish with a lot of hard work and dedication. And so if you can pick something along the lines of what you like, with a salary at the end that is something that you would want to have, that's the best way to maximize undergrad. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching that video. If you found it valuable, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
We're definitely going to closely look at those comments for any feedback. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Built for Medicine, and feel free to email us at builtformedicine@gmail.com.